What's good with YouTube? Y'all already know. Big Flacco with a convict's perspective, and I'm smashing, dashing, sliding on through with a little bit of energy. Please hit the like, subscribe, comment, and do all those things to help support this channel, and hit that bell notification for future fire content. And as you can tell by the title and thumbnail, right, I'm taking y'all back to school, man. We're going to discuss about the two different goals and causes and philosophies and agendas of two different entities. One being the Nuestra Familia, which is known as a criminal organization that gave birth to the XIV structure Nortenos, also known as the Nuestra Raza Hermanos, or also known as the Norteno Soldado, right? Each one having a different commitment, right? Level. One is, behind the walls in the streets. The other one is technically behind the walls. But we're going to see how these have merged, right? And how, if you really technically look at it, there's a lot of contradictions, right? The cause and struggle no longer exists as it was taught to those in the beginning. And how there's always been a different type of outlook from most individuals within an organization and a movement, okay? And how were these able to really be able to coexist? And the only answer I have is by basically a dictatorship, by basically a myth, right? A title. Because one is a familiano with a whole different type of obligation, right? And falls under a whole different type of rule structure, a governing body of basically organizational structure with a constitution, as opposed to one who has basic bylaws and guidelines to propel its movement. Now, if you look, how could these two really exist together, and how is there so much more contradictions? One acts in a superior role to the other. And these are 100% facts, and I'm going to fucking point everything out. A lot of people want to ask, are the NF and Nortenos the same thing, man? They're not. It's two different entities. One holds a leadership role, man. And see, all you got to do is look at the basic start of some of their bylaws, right, within both groups. Let's look at the NF first, right, which the bylaws and objectives of a Familiano Soldado, right, which basically the first section of it will be the primary purpose and goals of the organization are for the betterment of its members and the building up of the organization into a strong and self-supporting organization. It doesn't say anything about Norteños or Northerners. Its goal is for the organization. In the other sections of the Constitution, they go into other parts that you always put the organization first and foremost, its best interest. It all circles around, basically a leadership structure with a monetary purpose, right? And basically the responsive obedience to follow a chain of authority that the NF has. Nowhere in the Constitution does it talk about having relationships with other groups, other individuals, allies, or whatnot. It does talk about other members. It does talk about how discipline is meted out. It does talk about how investigations are ran. It does talk about, if you get different portions of the Constitution about the streets, it does go into lieutenants' responsibilities, captains, and whatnot. But nowhere do you ever see it talk about a cause or about a people as one, referring to Norteños or Northerners. They're not mentioned in any of it. Now, the Norteños, right, will, for the most part, all you got to do is look at the bond number one, which is his daily struggle on a line, which is number one, all Norteños will strive for better education, respect, and social status of equality. This includes and goes beyond acquiring any and all incentives and privileges entitled to a convict. Now, some of you guys may have got the bonds different than I did. That's the word of which I got them, okay? Then you look at the format. The format is an introduction to what a Nuestra Raza member is about, or Norteño Soldado is about. It talks about that they're the future behind the walls, right? Basically, by changing your ways, about the determination to fight and challenge all those who oppose your unity towards equal justice, about being an enlightenment to others behind the wall, other minority groups and whatnot, to push forward with a just cause. It talks of, educational opportunities, social respect, equality. All things are a positive push in how to help other races and bring them to the forefront of a similar cause. Basically, if you look at it, right, it's showing a whole different perspective that an Norteño is to be the fucking pawn to sacrifice for the cause and struggle and to do what is necessary behind these walls and to be an example to other races as well and to establish pintas, right? Which are recruiting grounds for the organization. It doesn't talk about money. It doesn't talk about any of those things. It talks about becoming a better man, a better human being, and going against those who want to stand forth against everything you strive to succeed in. Bond number three, it talks about basically working with other, minority groups, others of Latin descent, as well as those who live for the cause, or those associated with the cause, which would be the NF. Basically doing the NF's bidding on these yards to maintain some type of presence out there. Okay, and then number five, yes, it gives the Norteno Soldado the true authority of a Norteno Soldado in the absence of a C is going to be his bylaws, right? But the ultimate authority is always going to be the laws, but the supreme authority is always going to be the carnal on that line. Therefore, you're already planting the seed that anywhere you go, any place that you be, you are supposed to be inferior, right? But not feel inferior to one who holds the rank and status of a carnal. The only thing that you will see that is almost similar between the NF's bylaws, which is the Constitution, right, and the Nuestra or Norteno bylaws is the word sacrifice. That thought is already being fucking inbred in individuals at such an early age in their careers behind the walls. So when people think about the cosa and the struggle, it doesn't pertain to the NF. I'm going to tell you that right now. By 1972, it was strictly mob activities. This comes out the word and mouth of familianos I know who were deeply in the mix at that time. In the beginning, yes, it was about, the oppression and so forth that was being bestowed upon, Chicanos and Latinos in the prison wall by an oppressive group. Things slowly started to change, and it became slowly just about the mob. And it shows within the constitutional, framework when you read it, when you're taught it. You're taught a familiano is always right. You know what I'm saying? That no matter what, you always support a fellow brother, no matter what. These are things that are taught. Whereas as an NR member, right, especially after the 497, you started to see more of the NF taking a hands-on approach and making sure that the NR knew, or Norteños knew, that they were under the crack whips of NF authority. But if you think about it, and those who were NR soldados for a long time, or Norteños on the, pushing that line, right, those are the things that they stood against. They were about equality, respect, maintain some type of order on these lines. And see, that was the whole thing for recruiting purposes, right? Because they had to still have a presence on these lines, even though they were all back in the chute, right? The original purpose of the XIV structured Norteños was to basically run interference on MA activities behind the walls, those prison yards, not to allow the Southsiders to maintain any type of control because they were doing the bidding for the MA. That's what it was all about, man. Therefore, a cause and struggle was created and adapted, for a purpose for those to fall under file. Because, to be honest with you, yeah, there was a cause and struggle. There was those because you were from Northern California. People from down south did not want to see you succeed. So it was a good selling point. But now as things have evolved, think about it. On a prison yard, who are now the oppositions? Are people out there really striving for better education, respect, and social status and equality? Or are they starting to put into play the goals of the familia, right? To generate income, to establish fucking, illicit money coming in on these yards. What is the priority? Is it about a cause and struggle? No, because there's not a cause or struggle that really exists. The cause could still be there for the betterment of the people, right? When you have the opportunity to excel, right? But the struggle is no longer there. Therefore, the fire is no longer there. The oppositions against your advancement is no longer there. You got Norteños walking yards in Centinela nowadays. The struggle no longer exists. And that now the canales are out there on these yards, everything is falling under basically NF rule, NF agendas, and NF objectives, which is contrary to the Norteño cause and struggle of the 80s and 90s and even 2000s. The NF of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, man, there was a lot of killers that were brought out of those groups, you know what I'm saying? But a lot of them also came as hermanos, right, that were NR members on those lines as well. Therefore, they had a lot of NR qualities as well. Therefore, they understood the NR struggle. Nowadays, you got individuals who are sent to rank and status who don't understand what the cause and struggle was ever about. I mean, you got dudes that are being made at C's that could not have been NR members in San Quentin in the early 90s. Those are 100% facts. They wouldn't even been recruited. And they don't realize some of the sacrifices and struggles that were made in the 80s and 90s. It wasn't fucking the NF that was doing those sacrifices, that was going to war with the South Side, that was going to yards where they were outnumbered. It was the Northerners and Nortenos that were out there doing that, man. And don't get me wrong, 70s, there was a lot of carnales that were making sacrifices, early 80s as well, man. But all that kind of died out. Then the streets started to change too after the 90 indictments in San Jose. The people that were making movidas on the streets were no longer really carnales. They were individuals that were falling under regiments that were being sent to do fucking tasks out there, with sometimes the promise of being recruited, or it could even be a fucking cleanup, believe it or not. So you basically got two different entities. You got one that relies upon criminal activities, being a criminal organization, maintaining territories and whatnot. The other one is a movement that's supposed to be about bettering people, uplifting people, and inspiring people. And even some of us, as what you call dropout YouTubers or dropout Nortenos or PC YouTubers or PC Nortenos, whatever you want to call it, the things that we're kind of advocating for, or at least what I'm trying to advocate for, are the same things that if you were an NR or Norteno right behind the walls, or a Northerner, which are all the positive things that could help you as a man and your family stay away from the criminal limelight, stay away from having to be involved in those type of ventures, doing the things to be fucking businessmen or get a better paying job or being a better fucking human. That's what being a fucking NR member was in the beginning. That's what you were when you were in the forefront fighting and securing and making those sacrifices. And so individuals that were there, right, that you were fighting for could have that opportunity to go out there, become better men in prison, plant the flag, learn a trade or whatever it may be, and go out to the streets and leave all that shit behind. See, the whole purpose of the colonials and regiments in the beginning were this. Every organization needs to be self-supporting. That's why they were out there establishing territories and mob-like tactics. But before, a lot of the NR and Nortenos were kept out of it because their agenda was supposed to be something totally different when they got to the streets. They were not supposed to involve themselves in the criminal or illicit activities. Otherwise, they would have made a commitment to becoming a carnal. See, like I said, there's two different types of, commitments here. There's one that's a movement where you're willing to sacrifice for the betterment of the people. There's the other one where you're trying to benefit for the building of the organization and only its members. So people get the game twisted a little bit, man. There is a big difference. But what I'm trying to get at, that Norteno cause in the beginning of its origins is totally contrary to what the NF is doing today or what the NF has been doing. You know what I'm saying? It's became more about money. It's became less about doing the right thing. It's became less about being a close-knit raza. Because when it comes to money, loyalty's out the door, and becoming a close-knit raza no longer fucking exists. And that's why you got all these fucked up situations, these fucked up calls, these people being put in position because people who, have those greedy tendencies are always those that are pretty much able to fucking know how to generate income because they got the hustle. It's just in them. They don't have the loyalty to anybody else. So you have a select few that could be loyal to each other, but they can't even fucking do that half the time. That's why even in an evolving world, I've always been loyal to where the feds stand and all this shit, because the feds used to be like this. Either you're going to rock with us, you want to ride, you want to function in the regiment, or you can go ahead, be here and fucking ride with the household. And if you want, go out there and have a better life for yourself. But the state has a whole different agenda. With that said, man, think about what I said, man. And these are all true teachings and stuff and how people get indoctrinated in the different philosophies that you will see. With that said, I'm gone.